Thank you so much, Rebecca, and thank you all for joining us today. My name is Maci MacPherson, and I'm the park manager of 3 State Bitterroot Valley. So Travelers Rest State Park is where I am at here, but I also get to manage Fort Owen and Mid Rock State Parks, all which are very unique. And today we're really excited to talk a little bit about some of the partnerships that have helped make our state park here, Travelers Rest, really grow and flourish over the years. So I would love to introduce my rest of the panel on our call today. So I'll just kind of go around the 4 of us that so far are on here. Thompson, would you like to go first?
Well, let me pass it over to Tony. I think he should go first.
Oh, he is on here. Okay, perfect. Great. Tony, would you like to go let us know and let everyone know who you are and where you're from?
My name is Tony Ingashowa. I'm the director for the Salish Culture Committee for the Confederated Salish and Kootenai Tribes.
Great, thank you, Tony. Nice to see you. Thompson, would you like to go now?
Yeah, my name's Thompson Smith. Good morning. Nice to see everyone, and thanks for having us be a part of this. I work on history and ethnogeography projects for the Culture Committee. So Tony's my boss, Tony and the Elders Advisory Council. Happy to be here. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Thank you. And Lauren, would you like to go?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. My name is Lauren Flynn. I am the regional park manager for Montana State Parks for Region 2, which is the Missoula and West Central Montana region.
Don't tip over backwards, Lauren. Looks like you'll fall into a canyon.
Grand Canyon too, no doubt. Yeah.
And Molly.
Hi, everyone. My name is Molly Stockdale. I am the Executive Director of Travelers Rest Connection. We are the nonprofit partner or friends group for Travelers Rest State Park.
Great, thank you. So we thought for this session that it would be kind of fun to kind of dive into the partnerships that have happened here at Travelers Rest State Park over the years, in particular surrounding our tribal partners, the Salish Culture Committee, because Travelers Rest is on the homeland of the Bitterroot Salish people. And we've created a really great partnership over the years to really bring programming and educational opportunities to life here at the park. So we thought, Lauren, if you wouldn't mind giving a little history on how FWP has kind of grown our programs here at Travelers, and then Molly will kind of help us out with what the connection is doing nowadays.
Sure. So a little bit of background, I guess, is that for over 15 years, I was in Maci's position. I started out as the park manager at Travelers Rest. And Travelers Rest is a National Historic Landmark. It was really a significant site for the Lewis and Clark expedition. But of course, I hope we are all very aware that history didn't begin 200 years ago. And so when I began at Travelers Rest State Park, it still wasn't even open to the public. It was a new park, just new to the Montana State Park system. And we were trying to think about ways, first of all, I think thinking about sustainability and relevance. And how are we going to continue as the park went up to and through the Lewis and Clark Bicentennial? What did that look like on the other side when some of that attention had dissipated? But there was also, I think, a real desire on the part of all the partners that were involved at that time, including Missoula County, the Travelers Rest Connection under a different name at that time, and Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. I think one of the opportunities we saw was that there wasn't it didn't feel like a great presence of Salish history in the Bitter Valley. And I think we saw that as an opportunity and also a little bit of a responsibility because of this the site that was so significant and had been for so long. And part of that was reaching out to one of the first calls I think I made was to Tony, and he graciously agreed to kind of help us and guide us with the elders, input from the elders as we move forward. And that's been invaluable as a way for us to talk very appropriately and significantly about the kind of the past, present, and future, I think, of Salish culture and Salish people. And that's been reflected in our education programming. We were kind of a confluence there of the Indian Education for All, the rise of that effort within the state. And I think there was this great convergence kind of human and natural history that tied into what we were trying to do there. And again, kind of the past, the present, and the future. So I think it's been an integral part of what we've done over the last 20 years down at Travelers Rest State Park. And I'm looking forward to more of that going forward, especially with the great partnership we have with people like Tony and Thompson.
Great. Thank you so much, Lauren. And Molly, could you kind of give us a little sense of what you've been doing lately and what your passion is here at Travelers Rest in connection with the Salish Culture Committee?
Sure. I wanted to say, sort of as the nonprofit partner, I often say that my job here is to raise funds and friends for Travelers Rest State Park. One of the wonderful sort of benefits of that is that sometimes then I have money to spend on things that I am passionate about, that benefit the park, that benefit all of our members and visitors as well. One of those things, for me at least, is the ability to engage tribal members and to give them a platform really for sharing some of their culture here. I don't feel like it is ever our responsibility to share tribal culture. It is our responsibility to provide an opportunity for that to happen from the practitioners. So, for example, we have a program called Winter Storytelling at Travelers Rest. This developed out of in respect for the Salish tradition of sharing stories in the dark winter months. It has evolved over the years from a platform where folks like Tony can come and share traditional coyote stories of the Salish into a platform where we address all of the different areas that we cover here at the park. This winter, we had a young woman who is a Salish photojournalist. Taylor Irvine did a program on her work, which is called Reservation Mathematics, which is all about blood quantum. This is a topic that a lot of the members and donors to Travelers Rest Connection had no familiarity with, but it was a great opportunity for her as a young journalist to share her story, and also for our members to learn a little bit more about what is happening right now. We have coming up another program. I'm actually, right before I got on here, was working on a grant to bring down some folks to do demonstrations this summer. We try to have a series of folks come down. We've had Frank Finley come down and make cordage. We've had Tim Ryan come down and make fish traps. And as the nonprofit, one of the things that I work hard at is finding that grant money, finding those members to support this kind of thing, so that we can pay for the expertise of those who practice these things and who are working on the reservation today and want to come back and do these kind of programs here. I think that's probably the most important thing that I do, is to make sure that we are paying for this expertise and not expecting someone to donate their time or traveling down here, which, you know, is sometimes a multiple hour return trip in order to present these programs at our park. So that's what I've got.
Great, thank you so much. So that's kind of for all of you watching, that's kind of an overview of kind of what we've been doing at the state park in the past and kind of currently. And I thought it would be great, Tony and Thompson, just to hear from you guys, you know, knowing where we've been in the past here at Travelers Rest, and some of the other state parks or public lands or, you know, education programs around the state, you know, where we've been with you guys so far. I think it would be great to hear where you see us going in the future and maybe some dreams and hopes that you have for us in the future in terms of working with you collaboratively and having you as a partner in the future. I think it'd be great just to hear what you would like to see us doing and where you hope our programs go, if you wouldn't mind.
Well, for me, I guess it would just be staying on, you know, you're going in the right direction. I think that places like Travelers Rest bring a lot of light to the history, to the place, to who we are as a people. You know, the places like this are very important to future generations. Those young people who have no clue about what took place here on this continent, on this land for thousands of years. The young people, well, even the older people, some of the older people too, have a tendency to look at just the surface and see the surface and forget to look underneath and see what we see today and how it was built and how it got here. There's many things that have taken place over the years. Some, you know, we have to take history as it happens and learn from it and understand it and how we came to be as a people together on this continent. And I think that places like Travelers Rest, Fort Owen, and all the smaller places that are scattered throughout the country, people don't realize how much these places have to offer and how many, you know, the information of what they can offer and what they can continue to do in different ways. You know, in one hand, it's good to grow and to get huge and get large, but on the other hand, it's also good to stay small in many ways so that it has more, to me, it has more meaning. You get a better feel of the places, like you go to, you know, for instance, you go to Yellowstone or you go to these big parks and there's, you know, there's the personal feel, I guess, is not quite there. Where here it's more, you can get in depth into the different feelings and the different parts of the history and the land and the people and how this country was built and how it came to be. And to me, that's very important. You know, that's people to understand, to know that gives them a better idea about who they are, where they come from, and what they need to build on. What they need to build on for the next generation, especially those with children and grandchildren. When they go to these places and learn these different things, they have something to pass on to the next generation. Those future leaders who are the ones that can create and make changes for a better world for all. And, you know, although there's some good things that happen in history, there's also some bad things that happen in history. But you got to look at them all. You got to see how they all come together to come to the bad and get to the good. You know, there's so many things and so many directions a place like this can go and what they can cover. And so in the future, I just I just see a lot more happening like this. And I think that the word gets out about these places, especially for the young people. You know, even though sometimes you get these young people, they look like they're running and screaming and not paying any attention. But believe me, they're paying attention. You know, they got minds like, you know, memories like you wouldn't believe. You know, unlike us older people, memories is non-existent. You know, I think that's where we're going. That's where this is going. And you know, to add and to do little things, you know, to make it a little clearer, I guess, for visitors for down at Travelers Rest, I think is important. You know, to make things or to create things or to make some things visible without too much clutter. You don't want to take away from what's there, because that's why we go there. You know, I refer to the parks. You know, we go to the parks, to the big parks, to get away from this. But when you get there and we've cluttered it, we've done so much to it that you don't get that feeling that you're looking for. And we all need places like this. I like Travelers Rest to kind of regain your senses and you know, get your footing back on the ground and what our land and what our life is really meant to be. So briefly, I think that's the direction we're, you know, you're doing the right thing, you're going in the right direction. And I think gradually people, you know, as I go down there, I see the same people over and over, so a lot of the same people. And they're not going there just for the fun of it. They're going there because they're interested and they're learning and they want to know more. They want to know so they can pass it on to the next generation. That gives them an idea where we all fit in as a people. So I think you're doing good. So with that, I'll turn it over to Thompson Smith and let him take the next 3 hours and we'll go from there.
You probably just sent a cold shiver up all their spines.
I noticed all the screens are darkening.
Well, you know, it's so great that you're having this event today. First of all, thank you again. And it's also great to listen to Tony's remarks. And the first thing I just want to say is that I'm a worker bee in this stuff, and none of what I do would even begin to be possible without Tony's leadership. And it's his leadership, his vision, his support and encouragement that makes, you know, what we as a staff do possible. And the other thing about this that I think sometimes goes a little unrecognized is that it's the existence of a culture committee as an institution and the tribal council's 45 years plus of support for culture committees that really kind of makes what we do, makes all this stuff happen. And not every reservation has that kind of structural stuff in place. And that's not really the kind of sexy, glamorous, you know, stuff, but it's really essential. And so that said, though, also none of this would happen without Lauren, Molly, Maci, others like Mike Custodia having such a wonderful awareness that tribal perspectives haven't been present in so much of the public historical interpretation out there. In fact, until relatively recently, things have been largely erased. And there's been a lot of great stuff written about that in recent years by indigenous scholars, actually. There's a woman named Jean O'Brien back east who wrote a book called Firsting and Lasting that I think is a really important book for park managers as kind of a background, because it reflects on how Native people across the continent have been kind of scrubbed out of history. It's kind of putting into context what happened with Lewis and Clark. And since that goes right to the heart of Traveler's Rest, you know, the reason we put out our book, The Salish People and the Lewis and Clark Expedition, back around the time of the bicentennial, as Lauren said, was to make the point that history didn't begin in 1805. And we try to, the elders really are the ones in that book who really make that point hit home. And it's their stories, their words that we try to put forward in that and all the other material we do. And really that's, you know, I mentioned tribal council and Tony, and it's also, we always express our gratitude to the elders because it's their stories that they so generously shared and continue to share today that really form the heart and soul of what we put out there. But you know, that Traveler's Rest, Milltown are, in my experience at the Culture Committee, have been just to, you know, really the models of great consultation and building of a great relationship with Tony, with the elders, with the Culture Committee. So it's wonderful to see that. And as far as going forward in the future, you know, it depends in part on our capacity. Like Tony, I think sometimes worries about us taking on too much. We often do. I know I often do. And it looks like we may well, I don't want to jinx anything. I should knock on wood here. But we may have some more capacity coming forward here in the not too distant future. So, you know, the more hands we have on deck, the more things we can kick out. And you've seen that we've done articles and books, and that book, by the way, The Salish People, was just reissued in a revised edition in 2019 by the University of Nebraska Press. And one of the things that's right at the front of that book is something that directs readers towards a web page that's part of our area of the tribal website that allows readers to listen to the voices of the elders. So it's kind of a multimedia experience. There are portions in the book where there are bilingually represented excerpts from the recordings of the elders. And now you can not only have their direct words on the printed page, but you can hear those original recordings. It's just a kind of a cool way to make it come alive even more. And I think that's an indication of probably things we'll be trying to do, at least more and more in the future, is more and more web-based material, because it's a lot less expensive than publishing a book. And it's also more widely available. And, you know, Tony is talking about, you know, getting people to understand those deeper layers of history that are all around us, but are kind of invisible to us in many ways. And one of the main ways that he and the elders have tried to bring that forward, first of all, to tribal members, secondarily to the public, is through place names. And, you know, we just got one of our most recent place name signs up right at the Stevensville Church there. And I guess, Lauren, you guys are going to get that same sign up at Traveler's Rest, is what I gather. Is that right? So those are maps that are centered around place names. And, you know, that is such a wonderful way to convey the depth of the Salish connection to these places, and the time depth of that history that surrounds us. So that stuff, the reason I was touching back to that is that, again, with the web-based kind of material, one of the things we have in mind that's in our plans is the development of a website/app for the Ethnogeography Project. And maybe the most important part of that whole undertaking for these decades that we've been working on it have been the field trips with the elders out to these places. And when we do that, whenever possible, we've tried to record them. And that website will allow us to bring more of that out. You know, our dream is that for every place name you click on, all kinds of stuff will be accessed. Historic photographs, contemporary photographs, to emphasize the continuing relationship with these places, documents, maps, and then video. So that would just be such an exciting, powerful way to connect with the meaning of these places is if you could hear John Peter Paul or Felicity MacDonald or Louis Adams or Tony Incashola at these places talking about their importance culturally. Last thing I was just going to say is everything that we kick out, the first audience we have in mind are tribal members. That's the purpose of the Culture Committee, is to preserve, protect, and perpetuate the culture, language, history of the Salish and Kalispel people. So all of our materials have that audience first and foremost in mind, but we also do have in mind the wider public, and we try to make them available as much as we can, you know, with some exceptions, things that are really sensitive. I think that makes it even more valuable in a way for the public that does read these things or check them out, because what's being provided is really the tribe's own voice, the elders' voice, the stories that tribal people tell each other about the history and culture. So it's the real deal in that way. So Lemdom, I'll thank you. I'll stop there.
I get all
Thank you so
my guidance from Lauren Flynn.
Oh, he's got to respond to that. I think he's muted. I would like to
You know,
build on
Tony-
something that,
Tony, if that were true, you wouldn't be here today. We all know that.
Oh, you know it's true, Lauren.
I wanted to just build on something that was said here. Well, a couple of things that were said from the perspective of the nonprofit partner. It's so important when you have a relationship like this that it goes both ways. You know, it's important that we here at Travelers Rest are also supporting all of the efforts that the Culture Committee is taking on. So where it was possible for me some funding to, you know, purchase signs from the Culture Committee or the portfolio of materials, where we can order copies of the Salish book to offer for sale in our gift shop here, where we can be in contact with the Nkusum Salish language immersion school and, you know, work with them. It's a partnership can only work if it goes both ways. So I want to be clear about that. I also wanted to say that as you're building these relationships and these partnerships, maybe staff and volunteer development is a huge part of the process. The other thing that I can do if I have money available is send our AmeriCorps members to traditional games training so that when they are teaching field trips here, the background that they have is not what's passed down from AmeriCorps member to AmeriCorps member. It is what's coming to them from the trainers from the Traditional Game Society, or providing opportunities for tribal elders or members to come down here and teach us how to pronounce things in Salish. We have a lot of signage here at the park that our volunteers struggle to pronounce. So if I can bring somebody down here to work with us, that sort of benefits both ways.
Yeah, and if I could just tear off a couple things. Right toward the end, I thought Thompson hit on a really significant point, and that is something that we've tried to keep in mind all along, and Molly mentioned it earlier, that's not our place to tell these stories or these histories, that wherever we can use that tribal voice and bring that to the forefront, that native voice, that's where the story becomes much more authentic, and it becomes much more powerful when that happens, I think. And I think that when we look toward the future, and I think that's something that we've always had as a goal there, is to have more of that, and having tribal folks on site presenting that information in a very authentic way, whether that's through elders coming on site, or, ideally, I think we'd all be pursuing the some sort of a tribal staff person who would be responsible for those kinds of things. That is going to require partnership and thinking in new ways about how we structure the way we proceed. But I think if we could somehow manage that in the future, that just becomes much more powerful and a richer experience for everyone, including our staff, but also obviously the visitors to our park.
Lauren, to kind of also tag on to that, as I mentioned, you and Mike and your staffs have been wonderful about consulting with the Culture Committee, and not only in allowing the Culture Committee to develop signage, but also to invite our input in the overall design of kind of the interpretive scheme. And another kind of outgrowth of that at Milltown, for example, was Mike invited our feedback on signs that at least on the surface had little, if anything, to do with tribes. Signs about, William Clark and building the dam and stuff like that. But there are little ways, there are actually huge ways, deep ways in which that does connect to tribal history. But it's only if you frame it in a certain way. The usual way that history of early industrialism in Western Montana is talked about is as development. But it takes on a whole different cast if we talk about it as transformation. And from tribal perspective, that's really what was happening, was transformation from tribal ways of life being the dominant ways of life in the region to being marginalized, and industrial capitalism becoming the dominant economic system. And just recognizing that, realizing that this isn't the first appearance of an economy, it was the first appearance of a new or different economic system. And so that there were little ways in which there were just little rephrasings in some of the signs, not really adding any word count, but just a little turn of phrase that can kind of keep the thread of awareness of the tribes throughout the telling of the history.
That's really interesting, Thompson. I think that kind of I don't know, that really resonated with me, and just thinking about how we might phrase things either verbally or written in materials, to really think of it, try to think of it from a different perspective than what we might interpret as what was happening. Molly, did you want to say something? I saw your mute was off.
No, well, I was just going to say, I'd love to hear what kind of questions that people have. But, you know, this whole conversation for me too is just a reminder that this is, it's an ongoing conversation, right? We're never going to get it right because we're going to continuously learn on all sides. I also wanted to just honor something that Tony was talking about the future generations that are learning from all of these programs. And maybe they're not learning because they're coming here for a field trip. Maybe they're learning because their grandparents came here to learn about Lewis and Clark and then discovered a moment in Salish history that is powerful and meaningful to them. I take a lot of heart in that idea that everything that we do for our members and visitors here has the power and potential to transform the conversations that they are having in their own homes with their own families, and that is that's a powerful thing. So thank you, Tony, for reminding me of that.
To me, I think that, you know, how you present and how you say things, you know, goes a long way in connecting with people. I've learned that in the last few years that I've worked for the Culture Committee, is that, you know, people, especially a lot of even our own younger generations here, that young people who don't understand the history, who don't understand, you know, what I was talking about, how we got to where we're at. And they just see the surface. They just hear what the conversations here. So they go into these places, they look at these places, they talk about these places with a different attitude, with an attitude of not understanding. And so if we present these things in a way back to them that they start to understand, and that attitude starts to disappear, that division, that you, me, us, and those things become one, you know, the history that, like I said, there's good and there's bad, but that whole process of our history over the years, from layer to layer to layer, that changed and that created the way we live today. You know, there's still a lot of work to do on both sides. There's still a lot of work between people, but you know, I think we're getting to a point to where more and more people are starting to realize that today is not the beginning of time. It started thousands of years ago, and that whole process, if they start to learn that, today's world makes a lot of sense. You know, what's happening today makes a lot of sense, and how you look at things, it changes things, and how you appreciate things over the course.
I think one of our new field trips is really interesting. It was developed by an AmeriCorps member with an eye towards both the Lewis and Clark expedition and their encounters with tribal nations on their journey. And it talks about the communication, right? And how on the Lewis and Clark expedition, there was this, you know, this very complicated translational process, right? You had one guy that spoke English talking to a guy that spoke French, talking to his wife that spoke Hausa and Shoshone, and maybe there was sign language. By the end of that conversation, it was a completely different message. I think that one of our sort of focuses here has been, because if we're inviting somebody to tell their own story at our place, we don't have all of that translation kind of misinformation that comes down the line. And Tony, I think that's what you're talking about too. I think that sometimes younger generations who don't know a lot about the history, it seems like a lot of misinformation to them. They can only see what's on the surface. So providing those opportunities to really talk in a deeper way directly with one another helps to eliminate that sort of fuzzy translation or that, surface misinformation.
So I have to say, when I was letting people into the waiting room and letting people into our meeting and our presentation today, I only knew that Maci was going to be here. So I kind of had like a little celebrity moment, like, is that the Tony and Kashola? But I've been working with, Indian Education for All materials for a long time, and the Fire on the Land curriculum that CSKT has on the website, and the DVD that was before that. So I'm pretty excited to be here today and to be listening to this great panel. I want to know, what's the best time to come to Travelers Rest State Park? I've actually never been.
That's a great question. Yeah, we definitely would love to invite everybody to come and check out the park. We're open year round. We have a lot of events and programming during the warmer months of the year. But like Molly said, winter storytelling has been on Zoom all winter, and she is continuing it the first Saturday of the month in April, May, and June as well on Zoom. But in terms of in-person, honestly, any time of the year is great, but we do a lot of events in the summer and that sort of thing. But fall is beautiful with the cottonwood leaves changing, and winter is really pretty too because there's snow on the ground. So any time of the year is great to come. Our visitor center here within our exhibits and everything are open as well. So yeah.
The best time to come is when Tony and Kashola is doing.
Yeah.
I
Joe
used
is
to be,
telling me tomorrow, so.
I used to schedule last, but somebody put me way in front this year. We'll have to relook at the schedule.
Sorry, Tony. I'll get better next year.
I couldn't get away. I had to tell creation stories. See, that way at the end, if I came on at the end, then I wouldn't have to do that because there was no snow.
Ah, see, you're tricky that way, huh?
Yeah, she tricked me into that one. But the creation stories are a big part of who we are as Native people. That's the beginning of time, and so many things in the creation stories that tell so much about how we live today.
Well, I was looking at the participant list, and I'm a little sad that there's not more non-FWP people here, but I'm really glad to see all of our partners in the Communication and Education Bureau who've joined us today to hopefully learn how does parks engage in partnership with our tribal entities. And this is only one example of this. This also is replicated with the Crow tribe at Chief Plentycoo State Park and other locations. There's close relationships between the Little Shell and the Blackfeet tribe at First Peoples Buffalo Jump. And so, I really appreciate this whole panel. It's been great listening to you all and hearing how you guys have we're moving forward maybe with a little bit different direction or new ideas and new thoughts than we had when we even came in here today. But I think I'm really glad that our other communication education people, Danielle, Corey, Sarah Smith, I think I saw on here too, were able to kind of listen in and see how do we kind of put this together in state parks. So thank you, everybody.
Yeah, and we have a concurrent session that's from Jen Statham with the OPI's Indian Education for All division. And what's great is that we can then go in and let everybody know to come and watch the recording that we're going to be providing to all our conference attendees today. So it's going to be lots of opportunities to learn about this presentation, this panel. So thank you. So thank you all so much for spending your time with us. And I guess to close us out, if we're all set, I want to know maybe what's your favorite like land feature or cultural feature at the park?
Oh, that just puts us on the spot a little. I'll go first because I can't resist dead air. I have to say one of my favorite things is happening right now, and we're starting to see just a little sprout of bitterroot in our native plant garden. So that's kind of exciting.
I was just walking around earlier this morning and it's all foggy. So it's locked in with fog, and there were like 20 different species of birds just like coursing through the trees, and it was like dead quiet except for just like birds everywhere. And that was really, really cool.
I think for me, it's that cottonwood. You're coming in out of an open field and you cross into this cottonwood forest. In another month, the leaves will be starting to come out. And I think as you walk through that cottonwood forest, especially spring, summer, and fall, or in a snowy morning, it's easy to imagine yourself in a very timeless landscape when you cross into that down along the creek. And I think that's just a really always was a special moment for me that I miss now that I'm not there on a daily basis.
I like to stand on a bridge overlooking the creek. It brings back so many memories. It's fairly quiet. You just hear the stream, and your mind can just wander, and it kind of settles you and reminds you of so many different things that took place in the past, and then you reflect on what the possibilities of the future.
I agree, Thompson. That's the place to end right there. Thank you, Tony.
That was perfect, Tony. Thank you.
Thank you all. And for anyone interested, our next presenter in this room is going to be Nicole Jackson, who is a co-founder of Black Birders Week and Black and National Parks Week. So coming to us all the way from Ohio. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here, for providing this panel and this perspective on our state parks and partnerships and cultural history and relevancy.
Thanks.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. That was excellent. So outstanding.
Thank you. Till next time.
I hope so.
Till the future.
Everybody take care.
Yeah.